Hey guys, thanks so much for that great reception we had on our last video, the slider. It's the first video in our series pitches, so stay tuned for the screwball. It's a great companion pitch for that slider. Today I'm going to show you how to throw the two-seam backspin screwball. This is a great companion pitch to the slider. The slider breaks to your glove side. The screwball breaks to your pitching arm side. So whether you're left-handed or right-handed, it really doesn't matter. The screwball is a pitch that breaks to your pitching arm side. Now you guys that watched the slider video, I really appreciate your comments and questions. It's been a really good video, had a lot of response for it, probably the best that we've had in any of the videos we've published so far, so I appreciate that. Now, to describe the screwball, you pitch it at two seams, just like the slider, and the break, or I should say the rotation axis, is going to go toward the pitching arm side. And as I mentioned before, it's a companion pitch because it breaks in the opposite direction. That gives you the opportunity now, if you have both of these pitches, and you can throw them both for good command of location, you can really disrupt the timing of a batter, because if he knows you can throw a breaking pitch both directions, he can't just key off on your release. He has to watch that pitch at least a third of the way or maybe half of the way up to the top of the arc before he determines, first of all, maybe it's a straight pitch, breaking pitch inside, outside on him. So this is a good device to break up timing for a good hitter. And also that movement is an issue also. He has to adjust to that movement, whether it's inside or outside. If he wants to put the sweet spot of the bat on the pitch, he has to adjust for that movement. So let's go on now to the grip, and then I'm going to show you some slow motion video from the front or the batter's view, and then from the side, so we can break down the pitch and show you how to throw it. If you saw my video on the slider, it's the same grip, the very same grip. What you do is you take that horseshoe, turn it upside down, stripe is vertical, spread your index finger and middle finger all the way across the ball as wide as you can, again to maximize spin rate, and then put the pads of your fingers on that seam on the back side, just like the slider. Put your thumb between the seam and the vertical stripe, and again your ring finger goes on the side for support, little finger just goes along for the ride. And that's the grip for the screwball. Okay, this is the front view slow motion of the screwball. And we'll start here. I'm going to go ahead and play it one time through for your own observation. And then I'll just make some notes on the second time around. Okay, here I hold the ball in my glove with the angle, the release angle. I preset it. It helps me with my muscle memory. And I do hold this angle until the ball on the windup passes my hip on the way back. So just past my hip here, I start to turn my palm up and rotate my hand so that my index finger, middle finger now are parallel pretty much with the eventual flight path of the ball. I continue to the top of the windup, palm up, and the ball's about the same height as my shoulder. Now I'm going to break the pitching arc or the pitching motion into two sections. The first section will be from the top of the windup to where the release of the wrist begins, and then part two is from the wrist release point to the ball release point. So let's go back to the top of the windup. Okay, here as I go forward, let me talk about the wrist angle here. The wrist angle, or what I call let's just call that a hinge angle, because that's where the forearm and the hand actually hinge, and that hinge axis is approximately from third base to first base, and that angle is maintained from the top of the windup to this point at which I begin to release this 90-degree angle of my hand and forearm to this point of ball release. Now if you notice, this is where I begin to turn my wrist toward the pitching arm side. The index finger and middle finger are pretty much parallel with the ball flight direction, but as it goes through to the release point, the wrist turns toward the pitching arm side, and now the index finger is leading the ball. And then at release, The arm continues the follow through toward the target, and the ball rotation now is toward the pitching arm side. And of course, this maintains this high pressure area on the glove side, low pressure on the pitching arm side, causing the ball to break toward the pitching arm side. So let's go on now to the side view of the screwball. Okay, we'll go ahead and play this without comment. One time through. All right, as in the front view, you notice I have the ball already preset at the release angle. I do hide this in my glove so I don't tip my pitches. Then as I go back, at this point is when I begin to turn my wrist palm up in the back. I go up again to shoulder height. Then as I bring it down, as we broke down the pitch motion into two parts, as you can see from here to the top, the angle of the forearm and wrist is parallel to first base and third base. And then as I get to this point, when I begin to release this 90-degree angle of the hand to the forearm, is when I actually start to turn my wrist toward the pitching arm side. From this point to release, as you can see, the wrist begins to turn. Here the two fingers are again at right angles with the path of the ball, and then at the point of release, then the index finger is leading the ball, and then the rotation angle again maintains toward the pitching arm side, high pressure, low pressure, and so you get that break to the pitching arm side. One other thing I want to make note of here is you notice my release point is quite low. The ball is actually out of my hand down here. If you watch the pitch in full speed, it looks like maybe the release is higher, but it's quite low. And this imparts a greater spin rate, because from this point forward, if you notice, I'm still at 90 degrees, even this far. And right at this point, the wrist begins to release to zero. That's zero. So that's a very short part of the arc where the wrist actually makes that turn. And that gives you a high spin rate. So the release is quite low. The release is just past the front thigh, and already the ball is out here. And this gives that, again, that gives that high spin rate that has many advantages to it, to you as a pitcher. All right, let's go on now to some applications of this pitch. Now the way I use this pitch, it depends on, it's going to be different if you're a left-handed pitcher or a right-handed pitcher. Now as a right-handed pitcher, a lot of times I'll use this pitch to jam a right-handed batter. If he's looking for something inside to pull, you can throw this pitch inside. It looks like it's going to be something he can pull, but it will break in off the plate 6, 7, 8, 10 inches sometimes, and it'll jam him up and he'll hit the ball foul. This is really good when he already has 2 strikes. If you can get him to hit that ball foul, in most leagues, you hit that foul ball with 2 strikes, you're out. So I've used it very successfully in that situation, especially if they haven't seen it or they've seen it maybe early in the game, and you throw it in there, inside corner, breaks in, they try to fight it off, goes foul ball. The other thing too is, if you have a shift on, I have a video on the second base shift, or the second base out priority shift. It's essentially a shift designed to stop a run or to, slow down an offensive team that's really beating you up, and you need an out. When you have that shift on, you really want that ball hit to the strong side or to your third base side of your defense, and you're a right-handed pitcher, you can throw that pitch up the middle. It's going to break inside. They're going to pull that ball. So if you have that defensive alignment set up, you're going to get that ball hit where you want it. And remember, there's 9 other guys on that field with you. As a pitcher, use your defense, and you can do that with the screwball. Another time I've used the screwball successfully is after a strike thrown on the inside corner with a slider, because that pitch goes up there toward their shoulder, right in their eye line, and it breaks down over the inside corner for a strike. This is a great follow-up pitch to that slider, because you could throw that pitch over the middle now. It looks much better than the previous pitch he just took for a strike, and it's going to break in on him, break down in again on his feet, or break in on his hands. Again, if you have that 1 strike, he'll hit it foul, or if you have that defensive shift on, you can have him hit toward the strong side of your defense. Another way you can use a screwball to a right-handed batter is after you've thrown an inside slider for a strike catching the inside corner. You can throw that pitch away, and then if you can catch that outside corner coming back in, you can backdoor him with that taking strike. One way you can use this pitch against left-handed batters is, for example, I've had left-handed batters crowd the plate because they want that inside pitch. They want to pull a pitch down the first base line, especially with runners on. Well, you can throw the screwball over the middle and it will break to the outside. When he tries to chase that pitch, sometimes he'll reach out there and roll it over to the strong side of your defense, pop it up, and he won't be able to pull it down the first base line if you get that good break off, especially if you have a strike on him. If you get ahead, you throw that pitch over the middle, he's chasing it away. He's not going to pull that pitch down the first base line. And again, to a left-hander, you can throw that pitch inside. Throw it right in on that lead shoulder, and it'll break in and catch that inside corner for a strike. Sometimes he'll take that thinking it's going to be an inside pitch, breaks in for a strike, so you have a strike right there. So as a left-handed pitcher, there's different ways you can approach it, but you use essentially the same principles that I outlined if you're a right-handed pitcher. Just analyze a situation, use the pitches, use the movement of the pitches to get your defense in the game. This is another area that I think a lot of times pitchers overlook, is thinking about the guys behind you. Try to pitch to your defense, and a breaking pitch is a great way to make that batter hit into the defense that you want. So anyway, that's the screwball. I appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned. The next pitch is the backspin straight pitch. A lot of things you can do with that. So stay tuned. We'll catch you next week. Bye.